Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dominions 5. We're starting a new series today, and I am joined by Dardamos.
Hey, dude.
So, we are going to record a sort of introductory video
Again?
about. Yeah, exactly. Again, by the way, we just failed at an hour of recording. We won't mention. We won't say any more about that. But yeah, we're going to play a new game. There's been a series of games that Dardamos has been covering on his channel. If you're watching on his channel, you know all about this, where they were sort of open diplomacy games, and then people have been sort of casting, watching the game, and I've contributed to some of those casts, and that's been a lot of fun. So why don't you tell us what's going to happen for this game?
So really interesting. The first one we had, it was kind of ad hoc. I just wanted a game that I could watch rather than one that I could play because my time is kind of limited. But what's funny is we kind of started the videos and they got bigger and bigger. And I know Sakane, you said you joined me in a couple of the episodes. But the players were like we had advanced players, we had intermediates, lower players, and it kind of made for a slower paced game. So this time, what I did is I went through and picked a couple of bloodthirsty players, and one of the bloodthirsty players that I picked was you, Sakane.
Which is interesting because I actually consider myself maybe more of a slow push type of player, but we'll see.
Now, of note, with the bloodthirstiness is your first war, and what was funny is I think we had one war within the first 20 turns, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping you go before then, right?
I think it depends on the nation you're playing, right? And on the target and on the opportunities that present themselves. I think it's totally reasonable to like wait until year 2 sometimes, but in a whole game, it's surprising that there would only be one war by that time, you know? Like on average, there's going to be more wars because if you might not feel ready, but your neighbor might feel ready. So, right, just because you don't want to go to war doesn't mean you're not going to be at war.
Now, what's interesting is because I pick better players, we have a lot of players that have joined with some of their some of their best nations. Which I mean, like Joe Brandon picked Marverni, which is like he is the Marverni player. You've got Nosy, who's playing a guy or a nation that they've not really done it. But what is the nation that you picked?
Right. And I just want to say, by the way, there's going to be some upcoming content with Joe Brandon and myself and a few other people. We're putting together like a big Marverni sort of in-depth overview, just more like a Marverni fan club type of series of videos because we all like that nation a lot.
You got T-shirts and everything.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have merchandise. All right. Yeah. So yeah, and somebody's playing Vanheim in this game. Like, give me a break, right? There's Therados. So my attitude in Dominions is the exact opposite. I try to find like the crappiest, most underused, underdog nation possible. Now, EA Machaka, which is what we're playing, is not absolute garbage. It's better than MA Machaka, but it's still fairly underplayed. And I haven't played them yet, and so that's why I have chosen to play as them.
Now, one of the first things that you need to figure out, and a thing I've asked other players, is who's your lab monkey? Who's your researcher?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think so. And for the record, we're going to do like a partial overview in this video. And for those who keep watching the series on my channel later, units that we don't talk about a lot, I'll try to go over them in more detail, when I'm playing the game itself. I think for Machaka, the most likely lab monkey is going to be the Voice of Lion. He happens to be your only priest besides your cat mages. And he's like an average mage and researcher. 80 gold for 7 research is like okay. It's sacred, so the slightly higher gold cost is offset by a lower upkeep cost. And Nature 1 is not the worst path. You could do Swarm, in a pinch if you needed to. He importantly actually has decent leadership, so he can like lead sacreds and bless them if you're going for a sacred strategy. He could lead elephants or other animals, which Machaka has a lot of with Beastmaster 2. So a pretty useful commander and mage to have around. And he's a decent researcher.
Now, who is going to be your main line? When we see a battle, what is the largest number of mages? Like what mage will we see the largest in greatest
Yeah,
form?
good question. So obviously we're going to have a few cat mages because they have really high paths and do great buffs, and in particular the Lion King with Nature 3 and Earth 1. There'll be one or two of these guys in the later on to do all the big nature buffs. We also have like one that has slightly higher fire. But I think the special mage in this nation is the Buddha, which really stands out. This is a pretty cool mage. So it's recruit anywhere, but slow to recruit. So it'll take 2 turns out of a fort. But pretty cheap, only 215 gold for a 6-path mage, which is Fire 1, Earth 2, Death 2 with, an equal chance of a boost in any one of those paths. This is a fantastic mage. It has a Forge bonus, which is nice, makes cheaper items. You don't want to keep it at home because it generates Unrest and has Heretic 2, which I think we'll talk about in just a moment. So ideally, you want to be in your enemy's lands raiding and doing stuff, which this guy does really well, right? You can think of so many things this guy can do. Summon Earth Power for Reinvig and then spam out skeletons. I mean, you could thug him out almost. I mean, it's like bad hit points, but the paths for all the right buffs and, Soul Vortex and all that. So just a really fantastic mage. He can shapeshift to have higher movement speed and stealth, if I remember correctly. This is a really cool unit. You can put him in your big armies to do the big earth buffs, but then they could also act independently and be great raiders. So this is, I think, one of the great strengths of the nation is this mage here.
Now, with you said that you could stealth him and then send him out to raid. Would you be raiding with troops or would you be raiding with magic?
No, so I have to double check. I do believe the Were-Hyena stealths. This guy, I think, could, honestly, any Death 2 mage can raid very effectively with Horde of Skeletons. This guy happens to have Earth also, which makes him just even better. So I think alone he could just raid, provinces that have 6 PD in them or something like that.
Are you planning on going up enchantment?
Yeah, that's a very good question. That depends on what my neighbors are early and if I'm facing an existential threat. But I was thinking about that just the other day, and I actually do think enchantment is my best bet. And if let's look at the magic schools here. I think your options for Machaka are, well, it never hurts to go and grab a few of the low, the buffs. Obviously, enchantment is going to give us Strength of Giants, which is really nice. Low alteration can be nice because we have, we have nature access, we have earth access. So getting, enchantment, alteration 5 is worth considering for wooden warriors, right? There's construction 3 for legions of steel, although less so on a lot of Machaka units, whatever. Getting a few low paths is nice, but the main issue is, do I need big fire elementals, right? Do I need to go Conjuration 5? And that's useful against a lot of things. But the other alternative is enchantment for Horde of Skeletons. And I think I'm going to go for that because it gives me my earth buffs. It also gives me useful nature buffs. It gives me flaming arrows for pygmy memes. It gives me Skelespam. It gives me Heat from Hell later on for great fatigue play. I think.
Would you do Rigor Mortis?
Yeah, relief, because you can do both. You could do relief and Rigor Mortis. So I would for sure do, I could see a build where you go down to enchantment and you do Heat from Hell, Rigor Mortis, relief, all things that you could do pretty easily with this nation. And this nation is great at fatigue plays because it prefers heat scales. And a lot of people take heat 3, but they're kind of neutral heat. They take it for the points. So the heat is not going to affect us that much. Plus, all of our troops, the troop lineup has very low encumbrance. Even the Sacred here only has 3 encumbrance. Even our highest armored guy, who has 11 protection with metal gear, only has 4 encumbrance. So I think you could do great fatigue plays here with this nation.
What's interesting is that this time we kind of went in reverse. Usually I go from, talking about the mages to talking about the research. But what's interesting is that you just hit your main researcher or your main research goals. But now we could talk about, okay, so we talked about Horde Skeleton. Who's going to be your main? I mean, I know a lot of guys can do it, but who's the one that's going to cast the majority of your Horde Skeletons?
Yeah, so we only really have two options. We have the Buddha. The only other mage that can do it is the Hyena Clan Witch Doctor, which is not. It's nice. It has disease healer, so there's good utility here. But 165 for 13 is like okay for research. It's not as good though as the Lion dude, because this guy's cheaper due to the cheaper upkeep from being sacred. Now, obviously, this is a much better combat mage. This guy can do Horde of Skeletons with Earth Gems. He can do summon Earth Power for Reinvig. But this guy can also do like Bane Fire and all this stuff. Like, this is a good mage, but it is old and it's Heretic 1. So it's not a fantastic mage for like recruiting a ton of and having in your forts. And honestly, 165 per turn is pretty expensive. So it's not that this is a bad mage. You're unlikely to recruit a ton of these guys. I think my mage recruitment is going to be a mix of Voice of Lion and of Buddhas. Just these have more versatility. You can go raid with them and then also do major skeleton spam. So it'll still probably be the Buddhas.
Can we hit really quickly? Give me like a 10-second overview of what Heretic is.
Yeah, so Heretic is like anti-preaching in a sense. So if you look at what it says here, every 5 points of Heretic on the unit. So here we have Heretic 2 will be a removal of 1 point of Dominion. So because we only have 2, that means each turn there's a 40% chance you will lose a candle. So this is serious. This is bad. Candles, I think, by most players are undervalued. You need to have candles to make sure you're fighting in your Dominion, not in enemy Dominion, because you take morale penalties. So this is a kind of unit that you don't want to have a ton of in your forts, researching, killing your Dominion. You want to have this guy in the opponent's territory raiding, hurting their Dominion.
What I love is that you could have 8 of these guys in an 8-candle province, and you could literally lose every single candle that you have in there if you were really unlucky.
I guess in theory, yeah.
it's 0.2 to the 8 power, but it's pretty low.
Yeah. But it is low, yeah. Still, but you can still, you're likely to lose a lot of candles, and you're going to lose a lot more candles than you're making. So it's really important to keep these guys out and about doing stuff.
Yeah. Now with the so let's talk about rigor mortis. What do we? Because that's a big cast. Where do we get our rigor mortis from?
It'll also be the Buddhas. These are death casters, so we'd want to have a death 3, and then maybe we forge him a skull staff, and then he's death 4, and he's all ready to go. So maybe do earth power first, just so he has a chance to wake up from his, because rigor mortis is like, I don't know, a ton of fatigue, so he'll pass out once he casts it. So in order to give him a chance to get back on his feet, maybe do earth power first and then rigor mortis.
So the next one is relief. Where does relief come from?
That's going to be this cat mage here, who has nature 3. Very small chance of higher nature, but you do strength of Gaia, which boosts him to nature 4.
Oh, that's
doesn't even
nice.
Need a pistol mace, right? So at nature 4 with gems, you can do all the nature buffs. Because relief is 5 nature, but you just give him an extra gem so he can cast it, and then the extra gem to actually cast the spell, and you're all set. So, great access to high nature.
Okay, heat from hell. Where do you get heat from hell?
Well, actually, you could do it on You could do it on a fire 2 mage, because they can Phoenix Power to fire 3 and then do it with 2 gems. But we don't have to, because we have another cat mage that has fire 3. Okay. So yeah, it's pretty easy to reach all of these.
What I like about this nation is that a lot of these units don't require an item in order to boost high enough to get the big magic off. There are some exceptions, but
no, it's very nice. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's the magic diversity is okay, and it really does the things it does pretty well. So that's really satisfying. It really lets you kind of get up and running much faster.
Now let's move into your expansion. What are the units that you'll be using for your expansion?
Yeah, so I wasn't too knowledgeable about elephant expansion until I started testing it with this nation. So any nation that has access to elephants, you should ask yourself if you can do it, right? And elephant expansion is tricky. You need to practice it and get a feel for it. I think in my experience in EA, a lot of indie types, like, especially the archer, light infantry type of provinces, can basically be killed with 3 elephants, which is 1 turn, which is 300 gold. So the strength of elephant expansion is that if you have not garbage scales, you can basically recruit 3 elephants per turn for the first few turns. And that means 1 expansion party per turn, if you have the right indies. So there's a lot of ifs to make this work correctly. But it can work. And if you do that, then you're getting twice as many provinces as all your other opponents, which is really significant.
What's really interesting about this is they actually have the guy in the front. You see the 3 guys, right?
That's true.
This guy never actually comes into play. When the elephant runs away, they allow it to run away. They don't just they don't just put the elephant down. And speaking of running away, what is the chances of them running away? Did you see a lot of them running away? Because 3 is kind of a small squad unit.
Yeah, so you're going to have the morale checks. So that's why it takes, you got to practice, you got to get a feel for what indie types are going to work and which ones aren't. And I've done a fair bit of testing. So for example, like Wolf Tribe is like normally a pushover, right? But they dual wield daggers and they will murder your elephants. So do not go after Wolf Tribe with these guys. And there are things like that you learn, and you also, like, numbers are important, right? So, this I can take with 3 elephants, this I'm going to need 4 or 5. So that's really important. You have to practice, I think, elephant expansion a lot before you can do it comfortably. And I think it's also important to understand that elephants they're in fact going to be bad for a lot of indie types. So you want to strategically and surgically use your elephant parties to go deep and to grab the provinces that they're good at killing. And later, maybe after a few turns, you transition out of elephants because they're expensive. If you keep building them, you won't ever build any forts. And you switch out into something else. And that something else will vary depending on, what are the things you're missing. So for example, let's say you had barbarians. Don't send elephants against barbarians. That's a terrible idea. So if you have a bunch of barbarian provinces to get, then maybe recruit a bajillion javelin guys, right? That's a legit sort of strategy. If you just have kind of tougher, like I said, the Wolf Tribe, maybe your Sacreds with some kind of mild bless would do a great job against that, for example.
What's really interesting is I've been trying to, I've been teaching my wife how to play Dominions, and she watched a couple of my games. And it's really interesting because she remembered barbarians because barbarians, wrecked my face a couple times. And, it's one of those things that as you play more, you get used to it, and it becomes kind of more of it's almost instinctual as to what you should attack with what. But with a new nation like Machaka that's not played very often, you might need to relearn some of this.
Well, yeah, it's a good opportunity. I think Machaka has a nice varied lineup, and you can handle everything. You just have to choose the right tool for the job, right? And that's going to be sort of on the fly. So depending what indie types I have, I might switch things up. I think my build, I'm going to do 3 elephants on turn 1, kind of no matter what. That's going to be my opening party. But after that, if I see like no indie types that I can go with elephants, maybe I say screw elephants altogether and we won't do it. It'll depend, right? So we'll have to see about that.
Now, I played with Baratos, and they had their war elephants. Their war elephants are only morale 3, and they drove me nuts. I tried to expand so many times with them and just failed to the point where Baratos is almost a bad word to me in Dominions because
let's take so all right, so looking at Baratos, well, actually the only difference, they have morale 9, whereas our elephants had morale 10.
So this is why I'm really looking forward to seeing your expand, because I had horrendous luck with elephant expands. And here you're saying, I do it all the time with, 3 guys. Like, they would walk up, they take a hit, and all 3 of them would just run away. And of course, 2 die in retreat, so I'm on 200 gold out, and I killed 1 unit.
Yeah, so I say I do it all the time. I just said I did some testing, right? So I just loaded up, like, this is a test game that I've loaded up, but just so you see.
I
you just
can't
do
see
the
your test
first
game,
turn.
but we're gonna
Okay,
pretend like we.
yeah,
Actually, I
so
can.
yeah, you might be able to. So here, let's just recruit some things really quickly here and do the first turn. Just so I see what indies I have. Okay, so I don't know if you're watching my screen now.
Well, what I could do is I could actually pull up my own game and kind of make some.
Okay, but I could describe what I'm looking at here. So I have.
So tell me what you got. Tell me what you've got while I'm starting up mine, and then I'll tell you what I've got. And you can tell me what's good or what's not.
So in my cap circle, I have a province here that has 40 enemy units, mainly heavy cavalry. So that's you're never going to go after that, right? No matter
okay,
what.
Well, I mean, you're saying that, but are elephants okay against heavy infantry because they've got so much hit point pool, or what?
They actually are. They're surprisingly good at this, but 3 wouldn't be enough. Now,
okay,
actually,
you got like 40, right? There's 40 heavy cav.
Yeah, the problem with this is that it's 40 and most are heavy cav, so that could be like 15 heavy cav. That's too much. But a small cavalry province, or if it was like heavy infantry and heavy cav is second or something like that, you can do elephants. And in fact, if it's your opening army, you have a lot of free chaff, so you can put like your archers in front and have them meet the charge or whatever. There are tricks you could do. But yeah, elephants are actually not terrible against cavalry.
Okay, just so we could go over this really quick, because I've got actually a province that has only like a couple cavalry. Set this up for me and talk me through it. How should I set up my units? And you can actually show me on your screen too.
Yeah,
how would you script this to make elephants work?
Okay, so tell me, what do you have in your province? What's the number, and what are the 3?
40 types? Enemy units, mainly militias. Heavy cavalry being second, light cavalry being third.
Sorry, what kind of militia?
Just kunyang, like normal militia. I went
militia. Okay, that's great. Okay, what I would do, geez, that's a good question. So unfortunately, our starting commander is only 60 leadership, so you kind of only want 2 groups. So I'm going to put my elephant in with the warriors that have the spears. Okay. And I think we're just going to do. Here's what we're going to do.
This is kind of a little cheating, because I like I said, like, the 3 units by themselves, but when you put them in with a bigger group, is this what you usually do?
Well, only for the first, only for the first party. Later on, you're gonna on easy provinces. So, for example, I have 2 provinces here that are like 20 militia and like 10 light infantry and archers, right? So those guys are literally going to be 1 commander, 3 elephants, attack closest. With the commander way in the back, hold, right?
Okay.
But with this first army, you can be more ambitious, right? So in this case, what I would do is I want to normally against easy targets, you want the elephants in front, attack closest, no delay, just run in and smash things. In this case, we don't want to do that. We do not want to fight the militia at the same time as the cavalry. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all of our army like in the back, right? We're going to put all the army in the back. I think you put the archers, let's say, in the top middle. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to show me where that is on your screen?
Oh yeah. So I would put, let's say, the archers here. They could just be on fire, whatever. Then we're going to have these guys in the back. Hold and attack closest. And this guy's going to do maybe sermon twice.
I didn't profitize my guys, so we just get hold and stay behind yours.
Yeah, sermon is key though, because it adds morale to your elephants in general, right? So that's important to keep in mind.
Now, is that an H1 spell?
No, sermon of courage is holy 2.
Okay, so we need an H2 in order to do it, but we only have an H4.
Which would be our prophet, yeah. Okay, so I think against a small amount of heavy cav, this would be the script. So what's going to happen is the heavy cav, of which there are only a handful, are going to run in, and possibly they go for our archers, possibly they go here. It doesn't really matter, because by the time the heavy cav are here, our guys will have started their attack move, their hold and attack. They will have started moving. Okay. And we're going to kill the heavy cav like around here in the battlefield.
Okay, where's here? Sorry, I can't see your mouse.
Oh, it'll be like here. This is roughly where the heavy cav are going to engage us.
Okay, so like in the middle area. Okay.
Yeah, but closer to us. And importantly, the opponent infantry is still like coming. It's still like farther than this.
Okay.
And we're just going to smush over the heavy infantry, the heavy cavalry, and then they'll all be dead by the time the militia come.
Okay,
And
well, I'm
then-
gonna push.
yeah.
I'm gonna push end turn and actually see what happens. And if this doesn't work, I'm gonna blame you for screwing up my expansion.
Okay. I'm very curious to see this. Actually, are you streaming yours? Let's see.
I'm
Oh,
not,
no.
but
Okay.
let me see if I can.
Yeah, let's see if we
Actually,
can do
either
this.
way. Okay, so I'll give you the play-by-play. So
Okay.
I might have underestimated how many cavalry there are. There are actually like about 10 here.
Oh, 10 heavy cav?
Yeah, and the cavalry
news.
is hitting the enemy elephants first, and the elephants just got massacred.
Well, 10 is 10 is too much, right? 10 is way too
That's
much.
terrible.
So-
I blame you, Sack.
Yeah. Well,
Now-
so this is, but it's a valuable lesson. This is why we do expansion testing. And what's the moral of this
is.
story? The moral
Don't
of the
trust
story.
Sack. No, just
No, the moral of the story is if you have a cavalry province, you got to wait 2 turns so you get 2 different scouting reports so that you can pinpoint what the number is more precisely. Because scouting
Now-
reports can be off by 50% either way. So you can get double what your scouts reported.
Now, I would like to say that it was successful, that we lost the 3 elephants, but we only lost 3 other units outside of that, which is interesting enough. So it wasn't
But
a
not
total
worth
loss. I'm giving you, and I would not have attacked that first. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to our south a bunch of monkeys. And
Yeah.
so if you have just 3 elephants, what do? You just tell them to charge?
That you put them in front, attack closest.
Okay,
Now-
I'm gonna do this one now because I always like attacking monkeys because it makes me feel strong.
You can. Yeah. Go ahead.
You know, I go with one of yours, and while we're watching mine, I'm kind of interested in seeing what happens with yours. Yeah, see, this
So-
is what happens with me. They got murdered, dude. They got murdered.
Yeah. Okay.
Where
How many
elephants hate
monkeys?
me? 70.
Okay, that's too much. That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say how many monkeys, right? So, okay, you got to, but see, that's the thing. You have to test it because you learn these things, right? So the thing about the elephants is that they will trample and do a lot of damage and you will cause a rout before your elephants rout. The problem with 70 monkeys is that their HP is spread out so thin over so many monkeys that it takes a lot of turns to get to the HP rout threshold for the Indies. And by that time, the monkeys will have done enough damage to the elephants to cause them to rout. So
Now-
the key to elephant expansion is like overwhelming, kill them fast.
What I'm really excited about, what I'm really excited about is that I have the ability to even on though my channel will never have a successful elephant expand by me, I can sit here and watch you, and I'm really looking forward to actually seeing how you do it during your match.
It'll be interesting. We'll see. It depends on the Indies. So, like, look in the setup that I have here, these 2 provinces are super easy. I can take them with 3 elephants, which is what we're going to do now. Unfortunately, this leaves us not enough gold to even get one of these commanders. So we're actually just not going to recruit anything this turn as a commander, which feels really bad. But next turn, it'll be this guy who leads them. So we'll just...
Okay, now you got to remember that I'm watching your battle, and that means that my luck may shift.
may affect me? Okay.
Yes.
But so what I'm doing here is instead of going for the easiest target, I'm actually going for this one because...
which is a little bit harder. It's got 40 guys or 30 guys instead of like
30 guys, yeah. And the reason
Okay.
is this is a better army, so I should take advantage of these extra dudes, right, to kill this. So, and sorry, let me just, because I hate not having these up. Okay. All right, let's see how this goes.
Yeah, and archers are a different group too. Are you more afraid of archers, or are you? Yeah, go figure. You killed it without losing anybody except for like a peon. Yeah, it's just got to be my luck, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. Either way, I hate elephants.
All right, so look, so the elephants just smushed all the infantry, and let's take a look at their status now. So this guy only has 55. They start with like 64 hit points. This guy's at 29. This guy's at 64. So even if we didn't have all of these guys, we're nowhere near the HP route threshold, right? We have lost half of one elephant's HP total. So even if we only had 3 elephants, we've lost 1/6 of the total HP, and we've decimated one squad. And now we have elephants versus archers. That's not going to last long, right? And at the end of the day, this guy's still at 55. This guy's at 27. It's actually, he's got battle fright morale -5. That's unfortunate.
Oh boy.
But it's okay. He's with the club. And this guy, 12, but no afflictions, right? So we're good. And the indies are routed. And actually, I think I might not have put the guy close enough for Sermon of Courage. Let's see. Oh, maybe they did get it. Let's see. This guy here, maybe. No, he didn't. The elephants didn't get Sermon of Courage. Whatever. So that's like a good example of what you can afford. Now here, I'm a little stuck. So this was a gamble. Oh no, we have enough movement to go back this way, which is good. 40 Ichthyids is too risky because they can net, and they could net my elephants. So I don't want that. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go like this, and then like this.
So you have times where you actually get the 2 groups together in order to hit the same place.
But rarely. I think you should do that later. I think you should do that when you backfill.
Okay.
So the thing about elephant expansion is it's very expensive, right? But what you get in exchange is phenomenal growth early. So if you're combining elephant parties into a big party, you're sacrificing the one thing that elephant expansion is good at, which is a crazy amount of provinces per turn, right? It's basically like Murder Bless expansion with scales, right? So here, if we do this turn now, let's put a PD here. So we can watch this one, but our elephants are still doing all the work. Smush, smush. Smush.
That's really awesome. Okay,
and then
so
here, let's just take a look. See, this was the bold one, right? But this is such a tiny province; it's barely a test. Oh, we did lose one. Okay, so we were a bit unlucky here. We lost. Oh, they had a cloud mage. Yeah, that's why. But
yeah,
still,
it's always the cloud mages that do it. So can we let's shift over because we've kind of been on this for a while. Now with your later in the game, you're going to be moving away from elephants and into your sacred, which is kind of a. Now, do you think that this sacred is worth the gold without a bless?
Yeah, so we in the last version of this recording, we had talked about this by now already, but it's okay. It's different. We've done a different version now. So yeah, let's talk about the Lion Warrior here. So this is EA, right? So units are pretty crappy in EA. I think this is a pretty solid sacred overall. The thing is, it's in EA, so other nations have absolutely ridiculous bonkers sacreds, and I just want to mention this. These are the nations we'll be playing against in the game. So we have like EA Pangea, which is famous for these white centaurs, which are pretty crazy strong sacred. We have we're playing against Vanheim.
Okay, so you have all of the players already in here. When you're testing, you're actually putting the players in.
Well, if I'm just testing the mechanics of expansion, it doesn't matter. So I just make like one AI, like it's irrelevant. But I just did that here because I prepared this game just for this recording, so I could show people quickly.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm lazy and it takes a lot of clicking to set it up.
Yeah, me too. I'm right there with you. With your Lion Warriors, what exactly So you're gonna have to put a bless on these guys to make them worth it, correct?
Yes, but I think that's true about all sacreds. But look, what I'm trying to say is this is no Van here, which is possibly one of the strongest sacreds in the entire game, right? But it's a decent unit. So if we look at its stats quickly, we have
Like the van here looks like an example of a unit that I might buy even if I didn't have a bless. It's got the berserker, it's got the dual wielding, it's got a good set of hit points, it's stealthy, and by the way, you can also put a bless on it. Where Machaka's units, they've got high protection, they've got like okay defense, higher strength, a big hit, and they've got magic weapons. To their advantage, they've got magic weapons. But it doesn't really strike me as a 40 gold unit.
Yeah,
it doesn't
no
give me
bless
anything
at all,
amazing.
This is expensive, no doubt about it. And honestly, it's still expensive, okay? But I think that so for one thing, this unit is in an awkward zone where it's a good unit, but it doesn't quite have the right distribution of assets to take advantage of a super strong bless, in my opinion. And what I mean by super strong would be something like quickness, regeneration, like, oh, so let me split up. So quickness with or without like a weapon bless, or like a strong weapon bless, like I don't know, lightning weapons, whatever, right? And the reason is because it's only 2 attacks per square compared to like the vans that we just saw, not the whatever, the Huskarls, whatever they're called in EA, the Vanheers.
The Vanheers, yeah.
Which have like 6 attacks per square berserker, like, you know, insane damage. So those guys are like, yes, please give me quickness, or please give me like lightning weapons or whatever, right? Some garbage meme things. These guys
larger, that's what I took.
I mean, they'll like sure they'll be better if you give them, you know, thunder weapons, but I think that's a bit of a waste of thunder weapons in my opinion. Similarly, they're not quite super tanky enough, and the hit points are not quite high enough to really benefit from like a big old beefy tanky bless like regen blood bond, regen fortitude, whatever, right? Like those giant type blesses, in my opinion. So they're like in that weird zone where they don't quite have the right thing to take a super bless on them. Now, I do think they're well suited for a stat bless, like attack, strength, those kinds of things, which is what I've gone for in this game, and which is
why don't
really
we transition to that right now?
Yeah.
So what did you go with? So walk me through your build real quick.
Yeah, so let's go back, and I can show you on the temple here, but let's go back to the design screen and I can show you.
And then I'm just going to copy what you show up. And then I'm going to kind of talk through it real quick.
All right.
So you took this is the Buddha Father, correct?
Yeah, the Buddha Father is a rainbow chassis for Machaka. It has the advantage of having death, fire, and earth already, so it's kind of cheaper if you want to get multiple paths. Now, this is one type of imprisoned bless, and it might not be the one I end up going for exactly. I might switch around a few things, but I think this is representative. And depending on exactly what you get, one of the other chassis might be better or worse. But the key things here, first of all, just in terms of the bless, is Blood Surge, which is, I mean, Blood Surge is perhaps the best bless in the game in terms of like the ratio of awesomeness to cost, right? It's so good. So Blood Surge, right? Now, more here I went with some defense and some extra movement from swiftness, which puts these guys at 14 defense instead of 11. Plus, maybe they'll have a bit extra from experience. That really makes a big difference. And then I went for attack and strength. So combined with Blood Surge, that's going to give these guys really high attack. Like we're talking elf killing attack. And a ridiculous amount of damage. So, and by the way, another kind of build you could have is just like Blood, Earth, Fire on some kind of like statue or whatever with like, 2 times the attack and like 2 times strength and Blood Surge plus even more strength, something like that. And that's a nice thing you can do on 2-hand weapon dudes. And then they just like, it's like an 18 attack, 40 damage unit that just murders everything. That's always a nice choice. In this case, though, we've gone for something cheaper. My main goal here is make the sacreds nice and also get us some nice magic diversity. So our nation kind of would really like to have some access to astral and to air more easily than going through and doing fairies. So here we get like astral earth. We can do elemental stabs with fire and water. But there are a lot of versions of this. You don't have to get like a rainbow like 3-3-3-3. You could do, I don't know. I mean, you don't even need a fire. You could take the attack, but you could just go 4 in air, 4 in earth to do that staff and save points here. But you could play around with it. And also, I currently have not chosen to take any resistances in my bless because the nations we're playing against aren't like, I'm not expecting I don't think I need them against those nations. And also, like, the Buddhas aren't sacred. Like, there's a lot of the other strength of my nation isn't going to benefit from the resistances that I put on my bless, like all my other units and my main battle mages. So I felt better just going with the stats. But if you're going air 4, take swiftness and then put 5, to get a bit of shock resistance, right?
I really like this defense. Like, I think we talked about it. It's only +2, but like it's kind of I told in the last video where if you're playing D&D or some game and somebody says like, okay, you have to roll against me, but I get a +2. Like a +2 is a big deal.
Yeah, actually, it's +3 because you get 1 from swiftness too.
Oh, so that's where you got the other +1. Okay, so it's like +3 is huge.
It does.
And then, you're like, hey, I get that on every single one of my sacreds. That's a pretty good deal. But are you gonna have are we gonna be seeing armies of lion warriors alone during the where the majority of your army is going to be the lion warriors are doing the killing?
It depends. I think Machaka has a nice varied lineup that can that doesn't need to have the lion warriors in it. Look, there are only magic weapons, so that might be a key thing, and they're good units. It's just they're sacred. You can only get them in one province, right? So I would feel fine if I had lion warriors, but also like Rhino Clan warriors. In EA, this is a pretty decent unit, right? So you can, I think they'll be part of my army. I'd like, the more I have, the better. But, maybe we're doing Skelespam, right? Maybe we're doing Fire Elemental. So the front line might not be only lion warriors. But, if I'm playing against Machaka, like, this requires some thought. Like, what am I going to put on my front line that's going to stand up to this plus whatever blesses on it, right? Like, if I was a giant nation, we don't have any giant nations, but if I was a giant nation, I'm like, haha, they'll never punch through my regen. It's like, actually, yeah, they will, right? With like, this guy is going to be doing like, plus he has there's a fatigue component to this, but even without, like, with the little bless that I have, this attack's going to hit most of the time, and it's going to do a ton of damage that's going to crunch through the protection. So like, what's nice about this unit is that it takes some things that people are like, oh yeah, like, I'll just send a thug against you. No thug is going to survive this, right? Like, I mean, no early game thug is gonna, right? Like, even like, for example, one of my questions that I always ask myself when I do a build is like, okay, what happens if they come after me with like an awake expander, like a boar or like a wolf or something, right? That's got like 24 protection or something because it's doing, I don't know, iron skin and regen, right? And a lot of nations are like, well, I just hope he doesn't. But with this nation, it's like, well, I'll just have sacreds and right.
What I like is it gives you that extra tool. It gives you a tool that Machaka wouldn't have if not for this unit. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're going to be a nice part of the arsenal, and they're pretty flexible. I think. Consider a rainbow bless like I've done. Consider a kill bless like fire, earth, blood type of killy bless, which can also be imprisoned. I personally don't think they take an incarnate bless that well, but your mileage may vary.
What's interesting is I think that this nation has a lot of different directions you can go, and I think that we could probably go like 30 to 40 minutes at least on like the other units, different
Yeah.
builds that you could do, different pretenders, different, and we could be here probably all day because Machaka has that capability where a lot of other nations are kind of shoehorned into a single route.
Yeah. And
And
I
that's
should
one of
mention, yeah, sorry. I just wanted to mention, just because I think we're going to move on, but I just wanted to point out the scales, even though we might not talk about them for a long time. This is definitely more of a scalesy build with high order. Um, and although I might switch like a bit of growth for fortune, depending on the map settings, but a lot of our units have low resource cost, but pretty high recruitment point cost. So this is kind of aimed at, this is a pretty scalesy build, considering we're taking a bit of a bless.
Now, the reason I've been really excited about seeing what you're going to do, and I'm really looking forward to actually, casting the games because I think that you have one of your strengths is your scripting. I love watching how you script. And, I'm really looking forward to that. And I see you as one of the stronger players in Dominions, and the other players that I've interviewed have agreed. But I want to know from your perspective, looking at them, who have you played with before? Dominions is a game of reputation, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's who do you know and how good are they and what should I expect from them? Can I toe the line a little bit more against this player because they're not as strong of a player? Who are the players that you're going to be more dotting your I's and crossing your T's while you're fighting them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me look at looking at the lineup here for this particular game. Actually, honestly, it's pretty scary. It got scarier as it went along. But it's okay. So by the way, as a reminder, the nations in this game are, besides myself, are Archocephaly. Archocephaly is like Astral Nation with flying heavy cap sacreds. This is like the 10-second version. We have Therados, which is underwater free spawn ethereal ghosts. We have Ubar, which is the EA Sultan, again, kind of ethereal magic based, whatever, fire, air stuff. We have Pan, which we alluded to earlier, which is pretty scary sacreds and just high nature nation. We have Yomi, which is a little funky. They've got some great thugs, basically, like the short version. We have Marverni, which is a very strong astral nation. Oh, not all. Very strong astral nation. They also have the boars, the pigs, but also great units. It's a very strong nation. We have Helheim, which is like a death air elf nation. So, okay, typical elf stuff. And then you got to watch out for Wailing Winds. You've got, and finally we have Van, which is, forgive my French, complete bullshit. Like if he takes a murder bless on these, then we're kind of all screwed. So okay, so
I love watching your videos because you've always got that one nation. I think that the one I was watching was the man bit where you got to talk about the Movarks.
Dude, but that was a long
these
time
Movarks
ago.
Are crap. So yeah. Let me just a curiosity: have you changed your opinion on Movarks, or are they still BS?
I guess. So the thing, MA Man is also a great Sakanay nation, right? It's very kind of underdog. So it's the thing is that MA Man is not particularly well suited to dealing with Movarks. There are ways that you can deal with them. Movarks are one of the strongest units in the game. There are disadvantages. They're super expensive. You can't get a lot of them. But I also don't like the asymmetry of like the underwater nation versus the land nation. That's a big issue. But anyways,
that's something that's really we should talk about at some point. But let's go back into Van because this is another BS unit, I believe. I played with these guys.
It is.
But they do have their weaknesses. And one thing I like, I would like you to try this nation
No, they don't.
Because every single time that somebody says a unit or a nation is BS, I always like to say, have you tried them out? Have you played a game as Van?
So, let's see. Not recently. Although, so here, one example is a while back, we did a big like YouTube blitz, like 4v4.
Yes.
And my team, we had Van on our team. It was a bunch of YouTubers. And I chose EA Tianchi, which also has a dual wielding melee unit. And we took like quickness and something else. Like we took a bless just for them. And I mean, it was destruction, right?
To be fair, a 4v4 is a glorified 1v1.
Right. But the point is like, okay, look,
that was not a turn 80 build.
No, well, right, exactly. So I think you're raising an important point here. When that point is that Dominions is an asymmetrical game. There is absolutely stuff that is like, quote unquote, not fair. That's part of the game.
Yes.
So your job when you're playing it is, look, Movarks we were talking about, they're unfair. Yes, they also cost like 100 plus gold, like Anakites, like the heat giants from Ashot or whatever. Yeah, they are unfair. That is a BS unit. But to get that unit to be so powerful, the player had to make a ton of sacrifices in other areas. So if Vanheim comes at me with a murder bless, he's going to be really strong until like turn 30, and then his economy is going to be complete crap compared to others, right? So what do you have to do against Vanheim? Probably have to Diplo to not be the first target, right? I don't. But actually, to tell you the truth, the only weakness that I see here that I would be in a great situation to exploit is fatigue. So this is a cold nation. I'm going to be in heat scales. And if I go enchantment, I could do heat from hell, Skelespam. Like this guy's berserker with dual wielding. So it takes, and he has 5 encumbrance, which is not nothing. This unit drains a lot of fatigue pretty fast. Now, if he takes like Reinvig, Blood Surge, that's going to help. But if he goes like quickness plus a weapon bless, they're going to get even more tired even faster. So I think the play probably against these guys is like Skelespam and or like pygmies that you voluntarily sacrifice just to like take up attacks, right? And
I'm really interested.
Like fatigue them out.
I want to see, because the thing about it, remember, Vanheim is a very strong nation with very high sacred. But the thing about the difference between a beginner's game and an intermediate game is that intermediates have answers to questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no doubt that if Vanheim picks you first, that you will have an answer. And it might not be the right answer. It might not be the best answer. It might not be an answer that works. But you're not just going to roll over. Yeah. You're not just going to roll over. But what makes it really interesting, to kind of segue back into what we were talking about, do you know the player that is playing Vanheim?
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to say that's exactly where we should go. So I know that the player that is playing Vanheim knows Vanheim very well.
He's got Van in his name. His name is Gazloff the Veneer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Arco playing Arco. You just know that guy's going to know his stuff.
So I've played him. Actually, he was in the tournament finals and he was playing Van in that nation. And I think he played the nation well. I had issue with maybe some of his, like strict global kind of strategic decisions.
And his Diplo is something else.
But look, so I trust that he is going to play the nation well, and it's a very strong nation. So to me, that's scary, right? And honestly, I could say the same thing, for example, about Marverni, who, like I alluded to, we might do some content later, me and him and some other guys. He loves Marverni. He's good at it. And Marverni is a strong nation. So, that's going to be scary in some sense, right? I know that the player who's playing Ubar is playing it again because he recently, a game that just finished recently is a game that I subbed into late where Lucid was playing as Lanka. And I subbed in for Lucid for a bit. And this player, who's Kirby, played Ubar in that game and kind of liked them and was playing them well and kind of wants to play them more. So I'm expecting him to play that nation very well. And, I haven't played with all of the players in this game, but I have played with a number of them and I know them to be competent players. So I don't see like anybody here that I feel would be like that I could write off as like an easy target that I don't have to worry about. So, which is honestly I think, the case for most of my games too. Like I don't end up in a lot of games where there's like an easy player that's like, oh yeah, I'll go after him earlier. But look, I'm not going to do an early war against Van, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I think so. My style, first of all, I like to choose nations that are maybe more like underdog nations, for one thing. Or if I'm going to pick a stronger nation, I like to play them in a more unorthodox way. So that's just something about me that I like to do. And so I do think in terms of nation choices, I'm at a disadvantage in this game, right? I do think the other nations on average are stronger than Machaka. But I enjoy, that's why I play this game. I like that kind of challenge. I also think my style is, okay, let me segue into that by saying that the nations that fit those criteria tend to be the human nations, just because there are more of them and more of them kind of fit that criteria, but not exclusively. So because of the types of nations that I end up playing, I less often play like nations that are going to take murder blesses. And I tend to play the strategies that I use to support my nation choice tends to be like imprisoned economy scales kind of builds. So in some sense, I'm a bit more of a conservative player, perhaps, than others. And so the thing that I struggle with and that all Dominion players struggle with is figuring out when is it appropriate and safe to attack, to pull the trigger, right? And you also, in terms of diplomacy, right? One of the issues is when you have a reputation, which is something we're kind of talking about here. Once you have a reputation, obviously I put out content, and so people know that I play the game. I might not be the best player in the game, or I might be just as good as other players, but people know me and they might not know that other guy, right? So they're going to be afraid of me, perhaps, right? And so it's harder. So diplomatically, like if maybe I see an opportunity and I'm like, yes, I think analytically I could go and take this war and win it. But what happens when, like, oh no, the YouTuber that people knows is winning a war? That like raises alarm bells in people's heads, right? So it's harder to navigate diplomatically. Now this will be interesting because it's an open Diplo game.
It's not. We changed it from the original. This is not going to be an open Diplo because I didn't want to do the last time. I felt like it put the nation of Airmore at way too much of an advantage, and not only that, but I didn't ever get to, like, the reason I did open Diplo was so that we could see it and I could integrate it into the videos, and then I forgot to integrate it into the videos. So what I'm doing this time is I need you to send me all of the messages of all of the naps and all of the stuff like that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that way we can know what's going on, and then because it's actually in the game, my memory's terrible, dude. My memory is absolutely atrocious. But if I have, if I open the turn and the first message is, hey, I made a nap with, Vanheim, I won't forget it. So
yeah, no, for sure. We'll definitely share all our Diplo with the Omniscience. And but actually, okay, so not being open Diplo is good. I do think that one of the things that I do on average better than most players is diplomacy.
I was really impressed because when I watched your videos, I thought, because I think you put up your own video where diplomacy went to hell, and so I was expecting bad Diplo. But when I got in a game with you, you were very, very like we hashed out diplomacy really, really easily, and I was really surprised at that. And your Diplo does seem to work very well, and I think it gets you to the mid late game, correct?
Yeah, different people have different Diplo styles. I think my approach to Diplo is to be kind of forthright and fairly open and transparent, and to analyze. So I think an asset that I have is people trust my knowledge and my analysis of the game. And so if I can look at a situation and I can maybe come up with, like, an analysis where I can give the player a valid reason to do what I would like them to do, right? And I think that is pretty much the basis of my success in diplomacy, right? It's like, okay, let's say I don't want the player to attack me. I'd like them to attack somebody else. I could come up with, and it's not bullshit, like I can come up with a legitimate reason why that course of action might be better. And, sometimes that involves revealing either like secret information or like things that are uncomfortable. But sometimes when you reveal that, it shows that you're willing, it makes you vulnerable. It kind of makes you more like, less scary. It diffuses the situation a little bit. But it doesn't always work, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. It doesn't always work.
But sometimes it's like, there's a limit to what diplomacy can accomplish, right? Like sometimes things are just out of your control, and there's nothing really you can do about it. And the factors are sort of beyond. And honestly, and if that's the case, then you just gotta make him pay, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
The next thing, like I think, I think nobody who has ever fought against me in a war in Dominions in recent memory has felt good about it, like has come away from that war thinking like, oh, I'm glad I did that.
And that's one thing I'm really excited about, is that every single one of these wars has the potential of going the entire game. Like every single player, if it's a 1v1, this could end badly for any single war. There's no war that you can go in and be like, I've got this 100% in 10 turns.
Well, that's going to depend on the in-game situation, because that can certainly happen. And
it can happen, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah. And also, wars you can end wars whenever you want, right? Like,
that's true.
Like, it's important to learn when is a good time to say, you know what, why don't we peace out and go do something else? And, that's a very important lesson to learn in Dominions. I think it is. Machaka is going to be a fun challenge. I have some, ideas for, it has a lot of the tools that I like nations to have. In some ways, though, it's a bit of it's kind of not milk toast, but like it does like the standard stuff well. They're like good troops, good buffs. We've got a nice raider, decent research. Like it's got like, it covers the bases pretty well. But we're playing against a lot of nations that have all of the gimmicks, right? We've got Ubar, which is like gimmick city. We've got Therados, which is like just alien, right? We've got Van, which is like crazy sacred. We've got Marverni, which is like super astral plus the pigs, right? Like there's like a lot of we're playing against a lot of special gimmicky things that are in the hands of competent players, right? Let's not forget, gimmicky nations against like mediocre players is great because you kill them. But against the competent
they don't know how
player,
to use that tool.
Yeah, exactly. Or they only know how to use that tool, right? And when you find a way to mitigate it, then they're kind of screwed. So for that reason, it's kind of going to be a bit scary. But we'll see. And look, the other thing that can happen is maybe they're like, oh shit, Sakin is scary. I don't know what he's going to do with Machaka. Let's kill him soon. And like, that happens. If that happens, it happens, right? But
I am kind of curious as to whether people will, because I mean, like everybody on Lucid server, like a good number of them know that you're a content creator and that you're a good player and that you've won games against players like Lucid, and so, but you're Machaka. And I'm really interested in this game and seeing how that works out. I think that the players in here will have at least a healthy respect of you, but I still think there are players like Nosy who's just like, if I have a chance to hit a nation that I'm strong against, I'll hit them whether it's the player or not. And I'm really interested in seeing who does it. And when that happens, if you get hit, I mean, I don't know, maybe you're the one who actually does the first war. I'm really hoping that you will join us in doing a mini interview at the time. Make sure you keep a hold of your turns, and maybe if you know, during one of those turns, if you want to make your episode, and maybe we can do like a two at the same time episode, like what we're doing right now, and actually get it where we can see it from your perspective and get your opinion on the war.
Sure. I think what I'll definitely do is I'll try to write, like, for example, when I did the tournament, I was sending to Lucid, who was casting that, fairly regularly, fairly detailed messages in game, sort of explaining what was going on. And I think I'll try to do that too, which you can optionally read or not. It'll be up to you guys, because I don't want to necessarily monopolize, because if I do that, you'll get a lot more from me than you will from everybody else. So I don't want to necessarily monopolize all the time on your cast, but I'll probably include that if you want to. But in addition to that, I'd be more than happy to, to come on and we can kind of look at the state of the game, right? Every once in a while, for sure.
Yeah, personally, and maybe even a little selfishly, I would rather have you be in on like an episode or two, just because I like getting this. I like having this because this is my fun. I think I told you, like, I don't get me wrong. I like the YouTube numbers going up and I like the comments and stuff like that. But these things are fun to make. And, my wife is sitting outside the store right now, angry that I've been 2 hours on doing this. And let me just tell you, the flack that I will get is worth it.
All right. Well, I don't want to jeopardize your relationship with your wife. It's probably not. No, but
I just bought her a new video game so I could do more of this.
Sneaky tactics.
Ha ha ha.
All right.
But let's end this up. So, thank you for letting me have this interview, and I'll let you do the closing on this.
Absolutely. Well, first, so thank you, Dartamos, who has organized this game and who invited me to participate, and I agreed. I'm looking forward to the game. It'll be fun also to do the follow-up with you guys, and also especially at the end, looking back, because we've talked, a lot of these players we have talked with, and so it'll be really cool to have some discussions with the other players at the end, and we'll see how this turns out. So just in terms of what's going to happen, this video might come up. I'll put it up on the channel. I'll put it up before the game starts, because you're going to put it up like before the game starts, or you'll link to it or whatever. So it has to be up there. But then the actual videos for the rest of the game in the series, there'll be like a long delay before that, because I won't put up the videos right as I'm playing them. There'll be a bit of a delay, not too long. So this video will come up, and then expect a bit of a long delay before the rest of the videos from my point of view. However, definitely check out Dartamos's channel, and obviously I'll put a link in the description so that you can follow the game, not quite in real time, but in close to real time.
As an aside, you can come over to Lucid server, which is on my screen and in my video right now, and we will have a viewer place where you can download the turns, you can look at the omniscience turns, you can stay in real time, and all of the players cannot see that channel. So we ask that you don't we don't.
Yeah,
if you don't, no
spoilers.
Don't spoil
yeah, exactly. So, but that's exactly. This is a great opportunity for you guys to. I mean, you can watch the whole game being cast on his channel, but if you want to go deeper, you can actually get the omniscience turns and talk about it in the sort of secret channel, which is only secret from the players, but basically on that channel. And so enjoy that, and obviously don't spoil anything, in the comments below and stuff like that for me. But if you want to say that, then go comment, in Dartamos's channel, or probably would be in the Discord channel for that specific purpose.
And another thing is, we are looking for co-hosts, so we will randomly pull in people if you're available. So if you're seeing this video and you want to be on the YouTubes, we got our set time. You can go onto Lucid server, which again is on my screen right now, and you can ask to join up with the co-host. And we lost you, Sack, and that's going to be really painful, so we could really use some more co-hosts.
So what you're saying is you hope that Van rushes me early so that I die, and then I join you as a co-host.
I would never say that out loud.
Of course. All right. Okay, so that's going to be it for now. Not bad. Under an hour and 10 minutes. And
only if we go fast enough.
That's right, exactly. All right, so thanks you guys for watching. Dartmouth, you need to say anything as we close?
Catch you in the next one. Bye.
All right, see you guys. Take care.